On a dark and tempestuous night, flashes of lightning illuminate the clouds, revealing a towering castle. Within its halls, the demon lord sits upon his throne. With a commanding gesture, he summons his men, calling forth his famed 4 elite generals of the demon army. From the fire emerges his most valuable warriors. First is a fiery woman named Ulmandra, the Inferno assailant. A gust of wind reveals Sylphid, the Archmage of Storms. Next, the ground crumbles from the overwhelming power of Gnome, the Earthen Bastion. He believes these people are the key to ruling the world, his conviction only growing stronger. As the final piece to properly govern these figures in his absence, he begins to summon a figure under a blue magic circle, bearing the title Overseas Manager, Denosuke Uchimura. A large amount of fog hides the figure's appearance, revealing an average salary worker who looks utterly confused. In a flashback, a narrator speaks about how a man once fought a perilous battle of job hunting. He managed to secure a position, and he was happy, but he soon faced a problem that many encounter in corporate companies. While he worked hard, putting in effort while others slept, he watched as lazy colleagues received promotions over him. He felt that his own work went unacknowledged. While he handled storage work, his colleagues enjoyed golf trips on company time. This all came to an end when one day he was given the company boot, publicly shamed as he was ordered to transfer overseas. The other workers in the office were indifferent to the announcement, as it fit the fate of losers that the higher-ups had assigned to him. Still, Denosuke followed the orders and moved to the sunny tropical country with his suitcase in hand. As always, Denosuke decided to put his best foot forward, but when he arrived, he didn't see businessmen. He saw actual construction workers. As the one in charge, all the responsibility was pushed onto him, but the men were greatly unmotivated, as all they would do was play cards, drink, smoke, and sit around. He made calls to the higher-ups, detailing their problems with equipment, but the money hoarders told him to make it work and to stop wasting their money. In the end, the workers left, feeling underpaid. All the while, he saw pictures of his past co-workers back home, all out enjoying themselves. Still, he believed that one day his hard work would pay off, so he began doing everything on his own, packing the boxes, cleaning the office, making phone calls for deals. Eventually, the workers came back, as it seemed like they finally had proper direction and could trust him. Just when he had everything set up and was ready to settle in the country, he received another phone call saying he had been transferred again. Denosuke had proven to be highly productive in going to new countries to set up branches for the company, but in the end, having to learn a new language and build a community felt draining and unfulfilling. He just felt used. He asked himself, who am I doing this for? Why am I working for people who don't care about me? Just then, he was hit by a delivery driver on a motorcycle who wasn't paying attention. The impact sent him flying, and he ended up here. Looking around, he saw the stern faces of Ulmandra, Sylphid, and Gnome. As he frantically tried to make sense of the situation, the Demon King welcomed him. This caught him off guard, as the man knew his name. Almost as if Denosuke was presenting his resume to a new employer, the Demon Lord read over his files. In just 5 years, Denosuke had accomplished a lot, learning a foreign language, educating unmotivated workers, and successfully leading a new business. The Demon Lord deemed him worthy of joining his army. But Denosuke didn't take this as a compliment. He began to sweat, believing he would lose his humanity if he stayed. The Demon Lord then announced that Denosuke would be joining his 4 generals, with full benefits and compensation. He would be employed as a department manager, allowed to pick his own staff, and granted full authority. Denosuke blushed upon hearing this. He had to admit the terms were so good that he couldn't complain. To his surprise, the Demon Lord wasn't evil. He wasn't going to force him to stay. If Denosuke refused the offer, he would be sent back to his world. For the first time, Denosuke smiled. He was finally being respected as a worker. Denosuke bows his head as he remembers all the times his supervisors degraded his performance, telling him how harshly he was treated in his past world. By turning down their offers because he believes the negative words they said about him, he infuriates the Demon Lord, as the last thing Denosuke should do is listen to fools who don't respect him. Fools have no idea what they're looking at, while he has seen his own worth. The Demon Lord, however, believes he can bring out Denosuke's full potential. The Demon Lord puts together an inspirational speech, declaring that he needs Denosuke. Still, after this, Denosuke is about to refuse when the red-haired woman, Ulmandra, interrupts him, asking for forgiveness for her rudeness. However, she can't understand why the Demon Lord is calling on a weak human to join them as an elite general. The 2 other generals step forward, agreeing with Ulmandra's comments. Denosuke agrees with their assessment of him. Since that's the case, the Demon Lord decides the three of them will test him. Denosuke feels outmatched, as he doesn't have any powers, but Ulmandra is more than fired up. She instantly goes to attack him with a kick, but the Demon Lord steps in to stop her, as she always goes too far when she loses sight of her emotions. Turning to Denosuke, the Demon Lord sees that the man has fainted from shock. Ulmandra believes this is enough justification for him not to join, as in the struggle between demons and demi-humans, the man would be eaten alive. This leads to an argument between Genome, a demi-human, and Ulmandra, a demon. As they bicker, Denosuke wakes up crying, repeatedly refusing the job, but the Demon Lord further explains his role. He's not asking him to fight. The Demon Lord decides to give Denosuke a test. He shows a map to the man and explains that they plan on forming a pact with the surrounding tribes in the area. His exam is to successfully make a pact with the Minotaur tribe, using his negotiation skills to gain an upper hand, earn the Minotaur's trust, and welcome them into the army. With that, the Demon Lord dismisses them and leaves. Ulmandra is forced to escort him through the dimly lit hallway toward the Minotaur he needs to negotiate with, but she makes it clear that she is not happy about doing so. While walking, he can't help but agree with Miss Ulmandra's evaluation of him, as he has nothing that makes him special for this position. He remembers the high praise the boss had for him, and decides that he doesn't want to let the man down. He wants to prove him right. The two arrive at the room where the chief Minotaur is staying. Looking at the large gate in front of them, she gives him a heads up to watch where he steps, as he could find himself being trampled. She smirks as she wouldn't mind this outcome. When the gates open, he sees the towering figure of the Minotaur, believing it embodies violence. The sight of the enormous Minotaur chief terrifies him, conjuring images of being crushed beneath its hooves. Observing his unease, Ulmandra offers to demonstrate proper negotiation techniques. She approaches Lord Terius and speaks to him in a polite and respectful tone, expecting a swift resolution. Instead, their exchange quickly escalates into a shouting match. Uchimura realizes that Ulmandra possesses no real negotiation skills. She expected him to be satisfied with a large room, but Terius can't understand why she fails to see the problem. Denosuke silently laughs at how bad she is at this. After a prolonged argument, they are ejected from the chamber. Attempting to salvage her pride, Ulmandra insists that the negotiations were initially going well, but claims Lord Terius, out of nowhere, started refusing all her terms. Then, to make matters worse, he began pushing trash into the room, so she moved it out. The trash in question was hay. She shifts all the blame onto the client. Frustrated, she leaves the matter in Uchimura's hands. Disturbed by the commotion, Uchimura decides to strategize before making another attempt. The image of the fearsome Minotaur plagues his mind, and he wonders if communication is even possible. Seeking clarity, he visits a tavern for a drink, recalling a similar experience from his former life, one where foreign clients repeatedly rejected his proposals. He was about to quit altogether when he saw a flicker in their eyes and knew what they wanted. Remembering how he eventually succeeded, he finishes his drink and returns to the Minotaur chief's chamber, determined to negotiate. Meanwhile, Ulmandra reports Uchimura's supposed incompetence to the Demon Lord. She doesn't see how an outsider who just arrived could possibly solve their problem. However, the Demon Lord advises patience and does not share her doubts. She hastily returns to Lord Terius's chambers, only to find Uchimura filling a sack with hay. She asks why he is digging through the garbage, questioning his intentions. He explains that it will serve a purpose in his negotiations. Ulmandra insists that Lord Terius is impossible to negotiate with. Uchimura counters, saying she has cut her losses too soon, as the true negotiations have not yet begun. This embarrasses her, as she feels some truth in his words. He asserts that success relies not on the size of the client, but on bridging an understanding between parties. To achieve this, one must establish eye contact and build a relationship based on trust. With that, he confidently enters the chamber, a sack of hay in hand, declaring that all she needs to do is watch as he vows to succeed. Ulmandra's eyes sparkle to life, and a light blush dusts her cheeks as the weak-hearted man she once saw transforms into a confident alpha. The following morning, Ulmandra bursts into Lord Terius's chamber, searching for Uchimura. Seeing scattered hay, she is angered that they ruined a room provided by the Demon Lord and assumes failure. She asks where Terius is, believing he might have gone home. However, to her astonishment, Uchimura reveals that Lord Terius is currently with the Demon Lord, finalizing their alliance. Shocked by his overnight success, she demands an explanation. The two walk to the meeting room where the Demon Lord and Lord Terius are speaking. Uchimura explains that Lord Terius was receptive from the beginning, but deliberately provoked Ulmandra to observe her reactions. As he recalls a similar negotiation meeting he had with a client, where the men suddenly disagreed with everything they were discussing, only to then come around and shake his hand after he showed how committed he was to the partnership. To them, loyalty and emotional discussions were key. In other cultures, the companies are emotional and passionate about what they do, so they like people who are like them. This is where the miscommunication came from. Just like her, Lord Terius was disappointed as it looked like the alliance was going to fail. But another problem was that in their Minotaur culture, it's customary to bring hay from home and sleep on it. But she openly denied this, making him sleep on the cold floors for days, making him tired and sleep-deprived. Of course, he'd be mad. She now feels ashamed, as she failed to understand the person she was speaking to. If she had known, she would have never done any of this. After conferring with the Demon Lord, Lord Terius approaches Uchimura and Ulmandra, apologizing for his rudeness. The two shake hands, and all is forgiven. He thanks Uchimura for his skillful negotiation, and Uchimura-san is humble, telling him it was nothing, as this is his job. Ulmandra now understands that she could have never picked up on these cultural differences to complete the negotiations, praising Uchimura for this. Acknowledging Uchimura's triumph, the Demon Lord officially appoints him to the High Command. Asking if Ulmandra has a problem with this, the girl bows her head, seeing no problem with it. The Demon Lord bestows upon him a golden bracelet, symbolizing his new role as the coordinator for all foreign affairs. Ulmandra, seeing this, shyly calls him and shows her bracelet. Uchimura doesn't understand what she means, and the girl yells at him to lift his arm. She declares that she, Ulmandra, the Inferno assailant. Looking to him, he understands and repeats his title. She explains that this is how her clan recognizes new friends, but tells him not to look into her actions too much, being a classic tsundere. Looking at the two of his subordinates running off together, he believes his army is still too immature and incomplete, as there are still many challenges they need to face to raise the empire. Denosuke was gradually acclimating to his new position as a demon general. He admired how it had been run so far, as it already had a solid chain of command even though it was a small country. Not to mention, he appreciated having his own office that was well furnished, with 2 desks, couches, tables, a fireplace, and a nice view of the kingdom. He also had a supportive superior who saw value in even a worthless office worker. Now officially a general, he felt obligated to introduce himself to his new colleagues. He made his way down the hall to Sylphid's quarters and knocked. A young woman opened the door. She had teal green hair, glasses, and a half-closed-eye demeanor. In a tone like a maid, she inquired about his business. Denosuke explained his intention to meet Sylphid, as he was recently appointed as one of the 4 generals. The woman, named Belinda, was Sylphid's assistant. She curtly informed him that Sylphid was currently away and could not be disturbed at the moment. Disappointed but not entirely surprised by the resistance, Denosuke decided to return later. As he turned to leave, Ulmandra pleasantly rushed toward him with an urgent message. The Demon Lord had summoned him. She grinned and told him he had a new assignment. Asamura immediately went to see the Demon Lord, who briefed him on a crucial agreement for the demon army's expansion. The support of the surrounding demi-human nations was essential, with their next target being the powerful Ogre tribe. With military might rivaling their own, they posed a significant threat if they turned hostile. The Demon Lord desired a merger, but the Ogre tribe was notoriously difficult negotiators, stalling all talks they had planned. He entrusted Uchimura with full authority to secure the agreement. Honored by the Demon Lord's confidence, but wary of venturing alone into potentially dangerous territory, he accepted the mission. Ulmandra, seeing the danger in the mission, volunteered as an escort to keep him safe. Denosuke thanked the girl, and Ulmandra shyly looked away as if it was nothing. As they walked by a fountain, Ulmandra was pumped to be working together, declaring they would need to do their best. Before departing, he suggested consulting Gnome, head of the demi-human division, as she might have some valuable information they could use for insights into the Ogre tribe. Hearing this, Ulmandra made a firm stance and decided not to go with him, as she had other work to do anyways. But instead of questioning her response or reasoning, Denosuke agreed with her, as there were many tasks they needed to complete, so it might be best to divide the work. This threw Ulmandra off guard as she looked away, telling him to hurry up. Denosuke locates Gnome overseeing her daily training exercises. He is impressed by her troops' combat prowess as they are diligently working to improve their skills, leading to high morale as she makes sure to notice their efforts. He notices that she has complete command of her troops. Once the session concludes, Gnome walks to greet Denosuke right away, surprising him. She asks what brings the overseas manager here. He wanted to see her anyway to properly greet her as an equal, but is short on time as he came to inquire about the ogre tribe. Gnome admitted to knowing a little about them. She calls them a rather difficult tribe to engage, as they're powerful and known for their boldness. While she's explaining, an infuriated Omandra is heating up. She concludes that he needs to be cautious, as anything can happen with their leader. Gnome then stops to tell him to take this thing out of her sight, referencing Omandra. As her subordinates become tense from the sight of a hostile demon from her comments, he turns around to see Omandra looking like she'd explode at any moment. He questions her on why she's here. The girl is evidently angry as she was worried about him, but quickly stops herself. She tells him it's time to go as she had finished with the carriages. However, the sight of Gnome had reignited their feud. With Gnome shutting off her ears so she wouldn't hear the girl yell, the two began to argue, leaving Denosuke concerned about the depth of their animosity. Eventually, Uchimura and Omandra arrived at the ogre's castle, but the two are stopped at the gates by the security and are forced to wait for a long time. Omandra is angered by this disrespect shown, but the guards hold firm as they were instructed to await Abur's permission to enter. Omandra finds the delay insulting, but Uchimura recognizes it as a tactic to unsettle them. He urges patience, but her fury begins to rise, and just when she's about to attack, one of Abur's assistants appears, granting them entry. As they walk in, Uchimura takes notice of every little detail, like the guards, the dimly lit rooms, and the structure. Omandra tells him to stop acting like a rookie and to quit looking around. She reminds him of the position of power the ogres have, with it being comparable to their leader's demon army. Uchimura gets serious as he remembers Gnome's words about the leader of the tribe, Ogre, being a difficult opponent. The assistant bows, and the two are let inside the chamber of the ogre chief. Inside the throne room, the leader glares at them with disdain. When Omandra attempted to initiate negotiations, he silenced her, declaring his refusal to listen, greeting them with open hostility as he declares that in his presence they won't be allowed to do anything unless he allows it. All they do is talk. With this level of disrespect, Denosuke sees the closed fist of Omandra and deems she's doing an excellent job of restraining her anger. Ogure believes he knows exactly why they're here. They intended to surrender to his army, saying it with a ferocious grin. This darkens the faces of both Omandra and Uchimura. Ogure grins, saying he'd normally not allow this, but will let them live if they bring him the head of their chief, Overlord. Omandra is beyond enraged, ready to attack, but Uchimura grabs her hand and she stops talking, unsure how she should answer this man. Uchimura puts on a calm smile as he asks to let them think this proposal over, thanking the man for seeing them on such a busy schedule. He drags a shell-shocked Ulmandra out of the castle. Once outside, Ulmandra no longer holds back her rage at the man. As insulting the Overlord is unforgivable, she deems that she'll tear him apart and feed him to animals. Uchimura tries to calm her down as he gave them deliberate provocation during the talks. He calmly informs her of his situation. Ogure has no intention of any negotiation with them, but sees how powerful the demon army is and doesn't want to lose soldiers in a pointless conflict. He wanted her to attack him or say something to sour the talks, so he could complain to the Overlord and get a better deal. Understanding Ogure's ploy, Ulmandra regains her composure, though she remains furious at how twisted his plan is and can't forget the insult to the Demon Lord. When she asks if he doesn't feel the same, Uchimura shares his anger, which catches her by surprise. He says that creating a scene where they get angry will only put their lord at a disadvantage, so there's no room for it. Seeing how much thought he put behind his actions, the girl feels ashamed and apologizes for her actions. He waves her off, as it's fine. With Ogure unwilling to negotiate, their situation seemed hopeless. Just then, Ogure's daughter, Olulu, approaches them. She apologizes for the interruption and presents a surprising request. Ulmandra gets in front of Uchimura, being suspicious of her, but the man manages to calm her down to at least hear her out. After a bit of hesitation, she states that she wants their assistance in deposing her father. Olulu leads them to the empty food cellar, explaining that the ogre tribe once had great influence but now is in dire financial straits. Despite their reputation for strength and influence, they are facing severe food shortages as people are going hungry. Uchimura had suspected as much, which Olmandra finds hard to believe, but he informs her that he made observations of the poor condition of their equipment and the general atmosphere of the castle. It reminded him of struggling companies maintaining a facade of prosperity while on the brink of bankruptcy. Olulu believes that the only way to save the tribe is by getting outside help from the demon army, but her father won't listen. Increasingly, he's fallen ill, refusing to cooperate. His declining health was being kept secret, explaining the earlier delay. Fearing the tribe's collapse upon her father's death, Olulu pleads for their help. Uchimura, though sympathetic, cautions her against revealing such sensitive information so readily to a potential enemy. As someone in an organization, she should never reveal such information, as it could endanger all her people she's trying to save. This makes the girl look at him with a fond smile, thanking him for teaching her such a great lesson. With Olmandra not happy with how close they're getting, Olulu, confident in her judgment of character, insists she trusts them. Then she proposes a solution. A political marriage to Uchimura, as she offers him the position of tribe chief as a new member of their tribe. The suggestion startles Uchimura and infuriates Olmandra. Olulu, however, is resolute, believing only a brain-heavy individual like him could secure the tribe's future. She is ready to proceed and consummate their marriage, but Olmandra intervenes, preventing any hasty decisions as she does her best to remain calm. Later in his office, Asamura contemplated his predicament, a stalled negotiation, and an unexpected marriage proposal. Seeking clarity, he retreated to his mental space in the form of a bar, where his imaginary Olmandra, dressed like she had just finished her shift in corporate America, was engaged in a heated debate with the bartender about the strongest wild animal. She asked his opinion on whether the lion was the strongest, but the owner of the shop believed the gorilla was stronger. The main guy was confused by the absurdity of this argument. Olmandra argued for lions, citing the term pride as a mark of strength. This sparked an idea. Early the next morning, Olmandra rushed over to meet Uchimaru at the gate. Uchimaru apologized to Olmandra for the early summons, but required her assistance for a new negotiation strategy. She didn't believe he'd want to see the ogre leader so soon, but he revealed his plan involved targeting the smaller tribes first. As he handed her a report showing they were also struggling for resources, making them receptive to the demon army's offer of support, he called it Operation Stronghold of Large Corporations. Later, the two were called by the ogre chief, this time having a leg up as they could lead the talks. Olmandra understood the plan, but was skeptical of its effectiveness. Uchimaru explained that this strategy came from a time when he was trying to get a contract with a big company, but the company pushed him aside like he was a small fry. So he went to small and medium-sized companies, with them willing to sell his product. Eventually, the big company followed the trend, and he made the sale. He predicted that if the surrounding demi-humans allied with the demon army, Ogre's pride wouldn't allow him to remain isolated. Uchimaru feigned innocence, claiming he merely offered aid to struggling tribes. This further enraged Ogre, making him more emotional and vulnerable to Uchimaru's tactics. Uchimaru then revealed Olulu's involvement, as she had gained the support of most of his people under his nose. Ogre, shocked by his daughter's betrayal, listened as she explained the necessity of the alliance. She acknowledged his failing health and urged him to accept the demon army's assistance. Uchimaru seized the opportunity, proposing an equal partnership instead of a merger, appealing to Ogre's pride. Ogre, intrigued, requested time to consider. A few days later, Olmandra excitedly informed Uchimura of Ogre's acceptance. Uchimura, however, was preoccupied with selecting a personal assistant, as the demon lord wanted him to have a direct underling to handle matters like paperwork. He didn't know the beauty standards of this world, as he wanted to pick someone good-looking for negotiations. With the applicants not having pictures on their resumes, Olmandra, not seeing this as important, told him to pick anyone his gut told him. However, Uchimura found that idea crazy. Uchimura wished he could have just picked her, as she was what he was looking for. Olmandra blushed from this remark and took it to mean he was asking her to be his partner, making her happy, though she tried to act hesitant, as they had just met. While she daydreamed about the wedding, he told her it was because he had known her the longest, but she didn't hear this. Another knock interrupted them. It was Olulu, offering her services as the ogre tribe's representative. Grateful for Omer's help and noting her father's newfound diplomacy, she offered her assistance in any way possible. Asamura promptly offered her the assistant position. Olulu accepted enthusiastically, while a jealous Omer averted her gaze, reminding herself they were rivals. Uchimura, puzzled by her sudden shift in demeanor, reflected on the successful month and the demon army's growth, mindful of the increased risks that accompanied such expansion. Episode 3. A couple of days later, Uchimura is hard at work in his office, following his usual routine of trying to make the empire more efficient. Olulu entered, praising him for his efficient measures to keep people energized by giving them breaks. She informs him that they are going to reward him with a Distinguished Service Award, all in thanks for his work with the Ogre tribe. This makes him happy as he wonders what the award could be. But she leaves to go to lunch as he thinks about what this could mean. In the next moment, Ulmandra barges into Uchimura's office, bearing lunch for him so they can eat together and partake in a shared custom. Uchimura is grateful that she brought him lunch, but when he opens the pot, he sees nothing but a meager porridge. While Ulmandra happily eats it, Uchimura can't help but want real food. Calling the taste watery, Ulmandra happily boasts that they soak it until it's super thin so everyone can eat. This soup is how the demon army has been able to feed their people. Uchimura can't help but desire something more like meat. Hearing that he wants meat energizes Ulmandra, declaring she'll take him hunting. Ulmandra decides they would go directly to the source for it. Uchimura really didn't like the prospect of hunting just to eat some meat, but that wasn't the sole reason Ulmandra had brought him into the forest. She had actually received a request from the neighboring orc tribes, asking her to eliminate a magical creature that had been attacking their people within the woodland. Uchimura can't help but think how bad the food situation is, as they have to directly hunt for daily needs. But Ulmandra's viewpoint differed. To her, the weak being consumed by the strong was a perfectly normal occurrence, and generally it was the orc tribe's duty to defend against any dangers. Nevertheless, the monster in question proved too powerful for them, and Ulmandra couldn't allow the orc tribe to be slaughtered. At that moment, Ulmandra noticed some mushrooms under a tree. According to what she had been told, all the orcs that had been preyed upon were targeted while collecting these mushrooms, a precious ingredient. Therefore, the magical beast was surely lurking somewhere in the vicinity. The boar appeared behind them with surprising swiftness. Ulmandra gets serious and tells Uchimura to stay back while she handles the situation. Leaping into the air, she slammed her heel into the boar's head, driving it into the soil. However, in retaliation, the boar employed its horns, launching rocks toward Ulmandra. Though she easily evaded them, the boar, smashing past trees, was now heading in Denosuke's direction. Before any damage could occur, Alondra delivered a powerful punch to the boar's midsection. It was plain for Dinos to see that Ulmandra possessed immense strength, yet thus far, none of her blows had been decisive. Unlike humans, the boar had no such weakness, as it had a lethal option. Uchimura couldn't help but think of the weapons humans invented to make hunting easier. Ulmandra then used her magic, as she had no other choice, even though she didn't like it. She empowered her right arm. The boar charged toward her once more, but Ulmandra stopped it with one hand. At this point, she could easily dispatch it with a single punch, but doing so might spoil the meat. Instead, she hoisted it up and broke its neck. This brutal display freaked Uchimura out. With the boar now lifeless, Ulmandra stated that she no longer desired to eat the meat. Ulmandra dragged the body back to the orc village to show the inhabitants that the beast had been dealt with. The villagers were truly thankful for what Ulmandra had done, and she declared that they could enjoy the meat with her, making all of them cheer and celebrate. Looking at the boar and the orcs, Uchimura could hardly believe that they were all fine with eating boar meat when that creature had practically been their neighbor in a previous life. One of the female orcs broke down a piece of the leg for Ulmandra. Uchimura overheard the conversation and was even more astonished when he heard Alondra declare that she was going to prepare the meat herself. He questioned her seriousness, so Ulmandra offered him a taste of her cooking. Dinos found himself excited thinking of steak cooked back home, but when he asked her about the preparation, she simply hurled a fireball directly at it. The result was charred, grilled meat with the fur still on it, which was repulsive to his modern tongue. The look of it made Uchimura wince. Ulmandra insisted he should try it, claiming it tasted far better than it looked. However, when Uchimura took a bite, it was just as terrible as it appeared. It tasted like he had been chewing hot tar, and he would rather suffer hunger than take another bite. Ulmandra accused him of being rude for insulting her cooking, but Uchimura retorted that it was rude to call what she had produced cooking in the first place. He had been enduring the culture shock of this new world, but this was too much. Consequently, he asked to take over the cooking from now on. After Uchimura completed the cooking, Ulmandra tasted it and recognized that it was amazing. She quizzed him about his method. He explained that he started by soaking the meat in water to draw out the blood before slow roasting it over a fire to render the excess fat. Finally, he added it to a soup to eliminate any unpleasant odor. He offered to teach the villagers if they so desired, and they were delighted that one of the demon generals was being so considerate. However, Ulmandra didn't believe it was necessary for someone of Uchimura's status to spend his time teaching villagers how to cook. Uchimura corrected her. He stated that his role was to enhance the demon army, and a pivotal step in the advancement of any society was culinary progress. It was only natural for those who consumed meat regularly to discover new ways to improve its taste, but meat was so scarce that no one could afford to experiment with it. In other words, the country was impoverished and uninformed. When put that way, it sounded harsh, but Ulmandra couldn't argue. He was right. Their country was mainly desolate and weaker than neighboring nations. But Ulmandra believed that was precisely why they had to strive for change. She never would have thought that simple meat could change her perspective. Having finished up, Ulmandra suggested they return to the castle, but Uchimura thought it unwise to travel at night. However, Ulmandra stated there was no issue, as she could illuminate their path with a fireball. She took great pride in her magical abilities, a power unique to demons, which impressed Uchimura. This also explained why demi-humans who couldn't wield magic trained tirelessly, like Gnome, to become skilled fighters, while demons like Ulmandra could rely entirely on their magic. He questioned if this was the same for Sylphid, but Ulmandra didn't know, as she never attended meetings in person. However, Uchimura believed Ulmandra would benefit from improving her combat techniques. For instance, despite her attack power increasing dramatically when she employed her magic, the recovery period afterward was lengthy. As he explained the weakness to her combat, he suggested she take a weapon. As he spoke, the man was unaware of her face darkening. He further advised that she wear armor that offered greater coverage. At his words, Ulmandra halted, her light extinguished. She understood that Uchimura had a valid point, but he insulted her. She trusted him, but he disappointed her. As she now found the two of them incompatible, she furiously abandoned Uchimura in the woods. Uchimura was left wondering why she had become so angry. However, first things first. If he remained in the forest, he would likely be eaten. So, he ran back to the orc village for shelter, crying in fear. The next day, the demon lord praised him for defeating the magical beast, but noticed that he and Ulmandra were separated, asking what happened. After hearing what happened, he asked that Uchimura go clear up the misunderstanding between him and Ulmandra. Uchimura understood the order and was ready to go. But the demon lord reminded him that this was a great learning lesson, as he was new to the cultures in this world, and it would help him get used to how people think here. Outside, people pass by him, asking why he looks like a dead fish. But Uchimura doesn't pay attention, as he doesn't understand where he messed up with Ulmandra. After looking at the people of the world, he sees that he might have missed something, as the demons all seem to wear less clothing than the demi-humans. Pulling out his encyclopedia, he sees a picture of a demon working on its body, trying to train to make it more beautiful, as it's a source of pride. A strong body is required for increasing magical power. With this, he understands that skimpy clothing is a source of pride for them. So telling her to cover herself more is a direct insult to her training. Uchimura then realizes he made a big mistake, as his outburst was like a full rejection of her. After a long day of chopping wood, Olulu looks over to see a dark aura surrounding Ulmandra, who's extremely sad. Ulmandra turns around to see the girl and immediately goes to embrace her, thinking Uchimura hates her. When Olulu wonders what's wrong with her, Ulmandra shouts that she just wants Uchimura to compliment her body, but he must find her ugly. In Olulu's bedroom, she's able to understand the situation and reminds Ulmandra to give him time, as he's adjusting to the culture here. Olulu has spent time with him and knows that people where he's from don't dress like her. This makes Ulmandra embarrassed, and she asks what this makes her look like then. Olulu looks away and says, "A nympho." Ulmandra is shocked and yells that she keeps those parts covered, but Olulu doesn't think she knows what shameful means. But this hits her like a thunderstorm, as she's been trying to get closer to him with this potentially working against her. Hearing such a mistake, she bangs her head against the floor, breaking it. Olmandra panics, but Olulu tells her to be herself, as this is what Light Uchimura told her the first day she became his assistant. That night, both Olmandra and Uchimura run around the castle looking for each other so they can apologize. They both convey their feelings, with Uchimura finding her body very attractive, while Olmandra tries to explain that she's not a slut, but just wanted him to compliment her body. The two are embarrassed, but then Uchimura bows to make up with her. Olmandra is happy he's going this far to be sincere with her. With the two seeing where they made mistakes, Uchimura asks if they could be partners. Steam comes out of her ear as it sounds like he made another love confession to her, and she's not sure if he's being serious, but thinks they'd be good together. Some days later, the award ceremony begins with the Demon Lord bringing in all the chiefs from the demi-humans to attend. He announces that Uchimura will receive the award as he's done the negotiations to bring all of them here. The Overlord grants him a reward, a magic stone. Uchimura has no idea what it is, but is humble and thanks the king. He's serious when he says he couldn't have done this alone, as he turns to Olmandra. This catches her by surprise, but she's happy he's praising her hard work. With him presenting the magic stone on one knee, and it looks like a marriage proposal in front of everyone, even Olulu questioning if Uchimura knows what he's doing. Olmandra is embarrassed and wants him to do it somewhere more private if he must, rejecting it for now. Meanwhile, Belinda spies on Uchimura, finding his progress interesting as he's perfectly integrated himself into the army. Uchimura takes a knee as he is called in by the Overlord, freaking out as he's afraid he's messed up something, sweating bullets. The Overlord is about to explain why he called him here when Uchimura interrupts him to bow for forgiveness. Looking utterly pitiful, he leaves the Demon Lord completely confused. He begins to say he must not be worthy of his position as an elite general, but begs for another chance to prove himself. The Overlord is blown away by how low the man's self-esteem is. He tells him that he feels the man is doing a good job, which immediately lifts Uchimura's spirits. The Overlord continues the meeting by asking what Uchimura thinks of the relationship between demons and demi-humans. Uchimura thinks about it and deems that there's a problem with the power disparity, as demons have a natural advantage, being able to use magic and being more attractive than demi-humans. This makes the demi-humans feel inferior. The Overlord agrees, stating the core of the problem is magic. He wants Uchimura to find a way for demi-humans to use magic. Naturally, Uchimura believes this is impossible, but also thinks this is outside his expertise, as he himself can't use magic. The Overlord shows him another magic stone, like the one he gave him yesterday. He gives him an unshaped stone and tells him it's up to him how he chooses to use it. Lastly, he decides to assign him a magic researcher to help him with his discoveries. When Uchimura questions who, the Overlord tells him Sylphid, Archmage of Storms. Uchimura remembers this person to be that incomprehensible person in the suit. She was contacted for this task, but he's warned not to let his guard down. When Uchimura is done with his meeting, Olmandra can be seen hiding behind a pillar, watching him like a stalker. She thinks back to the proposal and the magic stone he gave her, thinking he wants to settle down with her. Magic stones are compressed magic power that's crystallized. As he's researching the stones, Olulu serves him fresh tea, like good assistant. Then Uchimura decides to ask her if someone could give magic power to the stones. Olulu deems that, in theory, this should work, but magic still takes skill, as she's never seen someone accomplish this. However he looks at it, he needs knowledge of magic, so he decides to push past his fear and go see Sylphid. He knocks on the door to Sylphid's office, announcing that he's on official business from the Overlord to work with her. But instead of Sylphid opening the door, it's her assistant, Belinda, who acts like she's never seen him before. While inside, Uchimura reveals that he knows the truth about her, that she is, in fact, Miss Sylphid. Belinda tries to still deny this, but Uchimura cuts in with 3 reasons. The first reason being her glasses, as demons don't need to wear them based on cultural links to magic as well as physical traits. The second would be her name, as Belinda isn't on the official roster for the demon army and doesn't appear in the hierarchy. And last is that the Demon Lord sold her out, revealing she wears her costume to get out of doing work. With no escape or reason to lie, she proudly comes forward as Sylphid, one of the 4 elite generals. With this, Uchimura wants to know why she wears the bulky mask and hides her identity behind a mascot. Sylphid believes the reason is obvious. If she came forward, the army would dump more work on her. The woman then lazily lays down. Uchimura tries to explain why he's here, but the woman refuses. Uchimura reminds her that this was an order from Overlord, but she doesn't care, though she explains that the device has already been made. Despite her initial reluctance, Sylphid eventually unveiled a remarkable artifact, a unique enchanted stone, the culmination of years of research. She explained that it was forged by fusing numerous smaller magical stones, empowering its wielder to cast a multitude of spells. This was her crown achievement for all her hard work. Uchimura was astonished. The solution he sought seemed to already exist. Enthusiastically, he proposed mass-producing these stones to rectify the magical imbalance between demons and humans. She tells him to go ahead then. Sylphid, however, swiftly dampened his enthusiasm. She explained that each stone's exorbitant production cost, 10 million, and the scarcity of magical stones rendered large-scale production impractical, as normal magic stones are hard enough to acquire. But now, to make this, you need high-class stones. Her bluntness left Uchimura disheartened. With a touch of sarcasm, Sylphid challenged him to devise a mass production method, clarifying that she would provide neither funding nor assistance. Uchimura now realizes his real task from the Demon Lord. He needs to find a way to make this stone affordable for his people. He inquired whether its multi-spell capacity depended solely on the fusion of smaller stones, seeking a potential workaround. Uchimura suggested creating a magical stone designed to execute only a single spell, reasoning that this would drastically reduce production expenses, making the stones more accessible. He compared it to a phone, with her able to follow along with the idea. Sylphid found the notion intriguing, suggesting that lower-grade magical stones could be used for this purpose. She commended Uchimura's innovative thinking, remarking on its uniqueness. Invigorated, Uchimura presented the stone entrusted to him by the Demon King, proposing its use as a prototype. Intrigued, Sylphid opened a door, agreed, and initiated the experiments immediately, declaring that they'd be working overnight on this project. She dragged a kicking and screaming manager to her lab, taking him downstairs. Meanwhile, Olmandra had been overhearing their conversation the entire time, suspicious of the activities of what a man and woman are doing alone together. She banged on the door, demanding they open it. By morning, both Sylphid and Uchimura were visibly fatigued. Sylphid triumphantly announced her success, calling herself a genius, and the creation of a single-use magical stone, naming the magic item Rosmarin. She admired the purple, cost-effective design, marveling at its potential for widespread distribution, as the price needed had greatly been reduced. To test the new stone, she designated Uchimura as the subject. Uchimura, tired, asked for a break. Sylphid, annoyed, agreed, but said he only gets 1 hour. Uchimura couldn't help but cry, asking, "Why are you like this?" As Uchimura stumbles to try and escape, maybe eat some food and sleep, the door is broken into, knocking him back. Olmandra storms in, her frustration overflowing as she demands an explanation for his nocturnal absence. Spending a whole night with the woman, the confrontation sends Uchimura tumbling as she bombards him with questions, trying to shake him awake. Sylphid is now back in her suit, greeting Olmandra. Olmandra questions why he's here, asking where the woman is. Unfazed by the disruption, Uchimura dismisses Olmandra's questions, saying Belinda left. Just then, 2 more people arrive looking for Olmandra, Olulu and Lilim, one of her demon commanders. They arrive with urgent news. An aggressive horde of bird creatures is assaulting the cities, with the people under attack, and the Demon King has commanded their eradication. Lilim tries to drag away Olmandra as she's the strongest warrior. Despite her objections of wanting to stay by Uchimura's side, Olmandra is dispatched to assist in multiple locations. Sylphid wants to capitalize on the situation, declaring the crisis an ideal opportunity to field test the new magical stone in actual combat. She guides Uchimura to an open area without obstructions, the ideal place to test it. Explaining that the stone was configured for a basic fire spell, Uchimura hesitates, prioritizing the Demon King's directive to address the bird threat. However, Sylphid insists on the test. She casually mentions that misuse could cost him a hand, leaving Uchimura both startled and apprehensive. He doesn't feel better. Following Sylphid's guidance, Uchimura concentrates on channeling magical energy through the stone, with her teaching him the basic concept of magic and how it flows through the muscles to circulate the stone's power. A blue light forms in his right hand, and to his astonishment, a fireball materializes in his hand. Overwhelmed, he realizes that even he, devoid of inherent magical abilities, can cast spells. Sylphid confirms the test's success and declares it's time to confront the attacking birds. He's hesitant to use the power, but she tells him to hurry or he'll be attacked by the birds. Emboldened, Uchimura follows Sylphid's instructions, targeting the creature and landing a hit. She tells him to continue, and he quickly adapts to the power. With each successful strike, his confidence surges. However, his triumph is fleeting as the magical stone fractures from overuse. Attempting another spell, he discovers that the stone has shattered, leaving him vulnerable. A bird seizes the opportunity to attack, but Sylphid swiftly intervenes, neutralizing the threat with a gust of wind. She explained that the stone had overloaded, demonstrating that lower-grade stones couldn't withstand sustained use. Reflecting on the recent battle, Uchimura pondered their victory, while noting Sylphid's discouragement. She had anticipated smoother progress and was visibly frustrated by the setback. The demi-humans living in the grasslands cooked the meat into a tasty soup. The children were happy that they had plenty of food to eat, as they didn't often have enough prey to eat there. The children served the two of them dinner. Uchimura was surprised by their appearance, as the demi-humans he had seen so far all had great physical abilities. Sylphid cut in, agreeing, as the ones here were meek and weak. Her comment came across as harsh, but she explained that people like them were the reason she made magical tools, as they could best use them. As a child, her family had been rather wealthy, as they were elven merchants, but due to circumstances, she left the house at an early age. On the road, she often went hungry and needed aid, growing up with demi-humans who helped her. But she learned that these demi-humans often lived in poverty, all because they couldn't use magic to provide for themselves. So, she decided to make magic tools to help them. But over time, she lost sight of this feeling. She told him that they must succeed by the time the next horde of birds came back. With this, Uchimura conjured up his comfort zone bar with Ukumandra. While the girl was happily eating her meal, he thought about the parts of the meat that were left behind and thrown away. But chefs had found a way to turn those parts of the meat into something flavorful. Depending on how you use something, it determines its usefulness. Uchimura got up, feeling like he had all that he needed. He asked the Archmage to make 10 of those low-powered crystals for him. The woman said she could do that but wouldn't be able to upgrade them, but Uchimura said they were fine the way they were. The next day, he headed to the battlefield, having had a breakthrough. With the snap of his fingers, the crystal of the Rosmarin crystals activated. With the birds headed right toward them, the birds suddenly stopped and soon ran away. He believed that the sound of the crystals, combined with the danger they posed yesterday, was enough to frighten the birds away. He also mentioned that the crystals took no power to activate like this, meaning they were better off being non-combative than shooting fireballs. So, the crystal was better like this for more harmless creatures like the birds than for offensive magic. With the two presenting their findings to the Demon Lord, the two were praised for their work, and he ordered for them to distribute this around his land to the villages. Outside, Sylphid thanked him for lighting a spark in her, as he had helped push her research forward, helping a lot of people, which was her true purpose in her research. She then handed him a crystal that contained 30 fireballs for him to use in combat, as he might need it or like it. Heading back to his office, he felt he could finally rest, at least until an energetic Olmandra barged into his office. She comically remembered her magic stone, then looked back at him, wondering if that woman was the reason he was so hurt. Uchimura is at his usual bar, where Olmandra has had a few drinks and is feeling good. She turns to a college student sitting next to her and sarcastically asks if she enjoys still living off her parents. However, the girl isn't interested in talking, which annoys Olmandra, making her rant about the younger generation. Uchimura just sighs, knowing that Olmandra is young herself. After some back and forth, it's revealed that the bar's version of Gnome is not only involved in the stock market, but is actually an expert. To prove it, she makes a trade right there, while flaunting her Rolex watch. A brief silence follows as the bar music plays in the background. After another drink, Olmandra suddenly gets irritated that Gnome is still wearing her hood indoors and demands she take it off. Gnome ignores her, so Olmandra decides to remove it herself. At the same time, Uchimura has a sudden realization. There's something in his life that he needs to take off and never put back on. He wakes up thinking about his job. He remembers how he was summoned and employed by the Demon Lord, who assigned him a series of tough tasks that forced him to find creative solutions to help different groups. Later, as he walks through town where merchants eagerly sell their goods, Ulmandra, blushing, walks beside him. He had invited her to come along, and when he turns around, he notices her new outfit and calls her cute. She had picked the dress after getting advice from Olulu. Ulmandra had originally thought of their outing as a battle, where she needed the right armor to counter Uchimura, so she had planned to wear a bikini to show off her body. Olulu, exasperated, reminded her that Uchimura isn't into flashy, revealing outfits and suggested something more elegant instead. Embarrassed, Ulmandra resisted the idea at first, but looking back, she realizes she owes Olulu for the advice. Meanwhile, Uchimura jots down notes from their earlier conversation about the stock market, thanking Ulmandra for helping with his research. She's confused, and when he finally explains why he called her there, she's heartbroken. This isn't a date. The disappointment quickly turns into anger, scaring those around her. Eventually, she catches up to Uchimura, determined to understand what exactly they're researching. He recalls how, when he first traveled to a foreign country, he had to speak with the locals to understand what they truly needed to improve their lives. He's applying that same approach here. Hearing this, Ulmandra is even more confused. He still wants to spend time with her, but it's still not a date. At a merchant stall that sells pots and bowls, he asks the owner how he knew his name and title as one of the demon generals. The merchant tells him that he heard rumors from other merchants that there was a funny-looking human walking around in strange clothes. This catches Uchimura by surprise, but the man continues. As he points to the necktie Uchimura wears, the merchant calls it a necklace, saying he's never seen something like this worn anywhere. Uchimura isn't concerned if he looks funny to other people, as this is the kind of information he was looking for. The merchant then takes a look at Ulmandra and sees the two together with the elite general, assuming they are a couple, making Ulmandra yell out in embarrassment. Next, the man shows them what he sells, his prized items, including gold cups, pots, and other items. The owner offers to sell them at a discount, saying they could be a great wedding gift, which gets the attention of people passing by. Without hesitation, Uchimura agrees to buy it, shocking a flustered Ulmandra. She wonders what he plans to do with these wedding glasses as she fantasizes about him being unable to hold back his feelings, and the two make a toast. To her disappointment, the two head out to do more research. They pass various stalls with different products, and Uchimura believes it's time to go over what they have. Talking about the annexation alliance they have with the Minotaur and Ogre tribes. This led to a healthy coexistence where they trade culture and people to work. Ulmandra thinks about this, now realizing he's right, as there are more shops now that sell items she's never seen before. This only increases the number of people shopping in town. Still, he says there's a negative to this deal, much to Ulmandra's surprise, as she doesn't see how. Uchimura is serious as he says it's a food problem. It's difficult to cover food supply with a growing population, causing items like wheat to go up in price, which results in inflation. Ulmandra agrees, as she noticed the price of items going up when she recently went to the market to buy food and had to strangle a shop owner because he wouldn't lower the prices, with the merchants not making much of a profit for selling what they already had. He believes the problem lies with the wholesalers, the middlemen who buy the stock from the farms and then sell it to the different businesses. If the wholesaler raises the price, the individual sellers will also raise the price to make a profit. With this, Ulmandra is ready to storm right there and demand they lower the price, but Uchimura tells her to calm down, as this is just a theory and they shouldn't rush. They need to be careful, as this could lead to a much larger problem for the nation, as they could stop selling to them entirely. Advocating for further investigation, he then shifted the conversation. He mentioned the persistent ideological chasm between humanoids and demons, conceding that although the issue remained unresolved, it could be addressed incrementally. Concluding their work for the day, he asked Ulmandra if there was something she wanted to do since they had time. A flicker of hope for a genuine date started until they were interrupted by the arrival of Gnome, much to Uchimura's delight and Ulmandra's chagrin. Inquiring about Gnome's presence, Uchimura asked if she was shopping. Gnome explained she was participating in Ruya, a cultural tradition of her people. Intrigued, Uchimura asked for clarification. Gnome described Ruya as the practice of bestowing gifts upon those held dear. Uchimura assumed she was procuring gifts for her tribe, but with a sly grin, Gnome added that she also presented gifts to those she intended to eliminate, her pointed stare directed at Ulmandra. Before the situation could escalate, an elderly mouse couple approached, beseeching Gnome for assistance. The group followed the couple to their small restaurant, specializing in a dish called chimozu. The wife explained that their long-standing business had recently experienced a catastrophic decline in sales. Then a treble merchant came by one day named Budagalian, placing a large order on the spot. He said he'd planned to make a profit from the dish as it had many values. The couple was ecstatic about the big order and spent all night preparing. But cruelly, the order was canceled on the day of the sale, leaving them on the brink of bankruptcy as they used up all their product, hoping to make a big profit, as the dish has a one-day shelf life. Turning to Uchimura, Nome asked if he, with his reputation for negotiation and culinary knowledge, could devise a solution. Uchimura expressed confidence in finding a remedy using their market research. After sampling the dish, he declared the shop could be salvaged. His assurance boosted the group's spirits, and Nome, trusting his abilities, deferred to his leadership and exited the store. Uchimura conferred with the couple, emphasizing the importance of establishing a clear objective, selling all 300 portions of chimozu before day's end. Analyzing the chimozu, Uchimura likened it to mochi from his own world, albeit with a significantly softer consistency. While this softness initially seemed detrimental, he believed it could be leveraged. He explained that chimozu's delicate flavor and yielding texture made it an ideal accompaniment for a variety of other foods. The next step was determining suitable pairings. Inquiring about their clientele, the couple revealed their customer base had primarily consisted of elderly people, but even their interest had waned. Younger generations showed no inclination toward chimozu, a decline in appeal the couple themselves acknowledged. Uchimura concluded they needed to target a younger demographic. Recognizing the time constraint, he proposed a division of labor. He would collaborate with the couple to develop innovative chimozu variations, while Ulmandra would secure cooperation from selected shops he'd written down. Omura readily accepted her task. While the city hummed with its usual activity of street performers, Uchimura, seeking to attract attention, walked through town with a drum set, proclaiming a special event, Ruya Day. Capitalizing on the audience's unfamiliarity with the term, he improvised a captivating story for young children. While Ulmandra was goofing off by playing with the beetle wrestlers, many had never heard of Ruya Day and stopped to listen to what Uchimura had to say about the holiday. He created a legend about a beautiful girl and young man selling chimozu. It was a love story set in the market where they shared an eternal love. The king forbade them to love each other out of jealousy. But the couple couldn't take it, as they met on one dark night during Ruya, eloping under the new moon with the word coming from its meaning. On the holiday, you should give chimozu to a loved one, lover, or family member, and maybe your wish will come true. The crowd liked the lore of the holiday and were willing to participate, making Uchimura smile as he was glad to have caught Nome as she left the shop to ask about the lore to best present it to the crowd. Holiday marketing is a big thing in modern times, as it's great for advertising a product. He gave the signal to the old couple, and they presented the crowd with a bunch of chimozu-themed products. Presented in a vibrant array of colors, the visually appealing display captivated onlookers as they looked fancy. Particularly younger individuals eagerly purchased the brightly colored treats. Surprised by the influx of young customers, Ulmandra questioned Uchimura's foresight. He explained the concept of repositioning, a marketing strategy employed to revitalize interest by targeting a new demographic when the existing customer base diminishes. His market analysis had identified families and young people as the ideal target, aligning chimozu with their preferences. The strategy proved wildly successful. The entire chimozu stock rapidly depleted. Ulmandra remarked on the store's newfound potential for sustained success. Uchimura concurred, predicting chimozu's ascension to marketplace prominence. Uchimura could already picture it being the McDonald's of this world, evilly laughing about taking over the market and soon the world. Ulmandra eventually snapped him back to reality. The elderly couple expressed their profound gratitude, but Uchimura humbly attributed the success to their efforts and Gnome's assistance. This sparked Ulmandra's ire, as Gnome had been conspicuously absent during the crucial moments. Uchimura calmly explained that Gnome had discreetly promoted the chimozu to humanoid patrons, prompting their purchases. He added that several humanoids had commented on how their actions had positively altered their perceptions. Despite this praise, Ulmandra remained annoyed. Their exchange ended with the couple's return, presenting them with colorful chimozu as a token of their appreciation, a gesture that brought a blush to Ulmandra's cheeks as she knew the lore behind chimozu. She wondered how Uchimura felt about her, but he didn't make it better as he gave her the wedding set of glasses. As she was hoping for more, like talks of their wedding, he brought up work again. Frustrated by his unwavering focus on work, Ulmandra labeled him a work-obsessed monster, declaring there were more important things than professional achievements. Uchimura later relayed his market findings to the Demon King, highlighting the neighboring Golden State's vast gold reserves. He proposed establishing trade relations, suggesting that commerce could bolster their military and alleviate food shortages. However, he expressed uncertainty about their kingdom's unique trade offering. To Uchimura's astonishment, the Demon King proposed the Rosemarine Stones. Uchimura voiced concerns about trading such a rare and protected commodity. The Demon King reassured him, explaining that researchers like them were exceptionally scarce, rendering replication difficult. He emphasized that their kingdom's true strength resided in its skilled individuals and foundational knowledge, assets impervious to theft or imitation. Expressing confidence in his generals, the Demon King commended Uchimura's ingenuity, anticipating further innovations. Moved, Uchimura pledged his unwavering loyalty. The Demon King, however, interrupted his emotional outpouring, cautioning him against the Golden State's ruler, Rampage, whom he characterized as cunning and perilous. Episode 6. Not long after, the day arrived for Denosuke's negotiations to commence, and he prepared for his journey to the Golden Country to convene with its ruler. As he was about to depart, Olulu and Ulmandra intercepted him near the carriage. Ulmandra expressed her concern for his well-being and suggested she accompany him. However, Denosuke explained that this particular negotiation was his inaugural independent assignment, and he felt compelled to handle it alone. Ulmandra, though understanding his desire for autonomy, cautioned him about the Golden Country's king, known for his volatile temperament and shrewd nature, advising Denosuke to exercise prudence in his interactions. She recounted how a merchant of the king had sold him fake products, and to punish the merchant, the king fed him to a crocodile. Ulmandra followed the carriage, running out and acting like a worried wife, reminding him to take certain items or asking if he had forgotten anything. She also gave a reminder to resist the allure of the Golden Country's female entertainers. Following an extended voyage, Denosuke finally reached the Golden Country, finding it as bustling as he had heard. He was pleased with his choice of this nation for negotiations, as the Demon Army's foreign exchange had, until then, relied solely on exporting goods like gems. However, a recent population surge meant the Demon Army had not only depleted its own gem reserves, but also found itself compelled to import them. To address this, Denosuke intended to barter for a precious commodity like gold, and where better to obtain it than the Golden Country itself? Denosuke's status as a distinguished Demon Army general readily secured him an audience with the king. After a brief wait, the Rampage King entered the throne room, covered in gold jewels. Denosuke bowed his head in respect and commenced introductions, but the king already possessed extensive knowledge of his background and achievements. He knew of Denosuke's summoning a few months prior as a demon general, his subsequent expansion of the Demon Army's influence, and his implementation of various reforms. The king recognized Denosuke's capabilities, but was perplexed by one detail. If he had served as a general for months, why was this their first encounter? The king's displeasure was evident, leaving Denosuke at a loss for words and prompting apologies. The situation appeared to be deteriorating rapidly, threatening to derail the negotiations before they had even truly begun, as negotiations were a psychological game with the king already in a superior position. The king inquired about the purpose of the meeting, leading Denosuke to gesture toward a chest behind him, revealing an offering he had brought. He presented an assortment of the Demon Army's finest silverware, but the Golden King, accustomed to gold, was deeply offended by such a seemingly meager gift. The king's anger intensified, and Denosuke offered further apologies, a gesture that was, in reality, a calculated maneuver. He then produced a magical artifact, presenting it as a gesture of contrition for the perceived slight of the silverware. Initially, the king was unimpressed, recognizing the device's construction from a basic magic stone. However, Denosuke explained its unique property, the ability to repel magical creatures. He highlighted its exclusivity as a Demon Army invention and its potential value, given the Golden Country's known struggles with magical beasts in its mines. The king, unable to refute this, listened as Denosuke recounted tales of rock golems plaguing the mines, disrupting operations, and necessitating a specialized defense force. Denosuke proposed the devices as a solution, eliminating the need for guards, enhancing miner safety, and boosting productivity. He then displayed a modest collection of rosemarines, explaining they were his present offering for the day, with the option for the king to procure more from the Demon Army if he deemed them worthwhile. Intrigued, the king expressed interest in acquiring additional units, contingent on Denosuke demonstrating the device's efficacy. With a snap of his fingers, the room plunged into darkness, and the king's crocodile companion was unleashed beside Denosuke. The king believed that if Denosuke's claims were accurate, Dispelling the crocodile should prove trivial. This perilous test of his life unnerved Denosuke, yet his faith in the devices remained steadfast. He raised one, activating it to ward off the creature. The device functioned as intended, but as the crocodile retreated from Denosuke, its attention shifted to the king. Denosuke, witnessing this, attempted to save the king with the device, aiming a fireball, but his efforts proved unneeded. The king effortlessly vanquished the crocodile with his lightning magic, reducing it to ashes. Impressed by both the devices and Denosuke's quick thinking, the king, despite Denosuke's commoner status, recognized his courage in facing him as an equal. His negotiating prowess, his loyalty to his ruler, and his immediate reaction to protect him. With the king having a favorable look toward Denosuke, he agreed to purchase the rosmarines, snapping his fingers, and the king's maids placed 3 gold bars before him as payment, with 1 gold bar being worth 700,000 G. Asking how many he could get from Denosuke, Denosuke estimated that the demon army could produce 200 units within a month, but the impatient king demanded a 1-week turnaround of all his magic stones, offering a substantial quantity of gold as compensation. The negotiations had concluded favorably, but fulfilling the 200-unit order in a single week presented a daunting challenge. Denosuke consulted with Sylphid about meeting the deadline, only to be informed of its impossibility. The recent commencement of mass production for the rosmarines made such a rapid turnaround unreasonable. Denosuke implored Sylphid to find a solution, but she insisted on the impracticality of suddenly ramping up production as they already had a domestic demand. She reprimanded Denosuke for accepting such a demanding request without considering the production constraints. Olulu tried to stand up for Denosuke, but he stopped her, as this happened all the time in companies, so it was a criticism Denosuke acknowledged as valid. However, recalling the logistics report on rosmarine distribution from a few days prior, he realized the prioritization of areas with magical beast problems should have resulted in low local demand, suggesting Sylphid had fabricated her staffing shortages to avoid doing additional work. With her now exposed for slacking off, Sylphid reluctantly agreed to fulfill the order. Just then, a Golden Country emissary arrived, conveying the king's heightened interest in the rosmarines and increasing the order to 300 units in a week. Through relentless effort and extended hours, the production team miraculously delivered the 300 units within 3 weeks. With the quota met, Denosuke finally allowed himself to unwind. Olulu congratulated him on fulfilling the order, expressing curiosity about the selling price. Denosuke revealed he secured 50,000 per rosmarine, totaling 150 million for the 300 units. The Golden Country messenger returned, announcing the king's desire for an additional 100 units. Denosuke envisioned Sylphid's reaction to this new demand and came prepared with boxes of sweets. He pleaded for her cooperation. Although displeased, Sylphid agreed but called for 10 new workers to speed up the craftsmanship. With the added workforce, they made substantial headway on the remaining 100 units, leaving only the delivery remaining. Given the rosmarine's month-long lifespan, the Golden King would require continuous replenishment from the demon army, making this venture a triumph for Denosuke as he had expected this outcome. Denosuke retreats back to his mindscape where he is left alone with no one to have a drink with. Just as he began to relax again, Olulu rushed in to talk to the emissary, asking about the news of the Golden King's complete order cancellation. She says that the merchants of his kingdom managed to replicate a similar product that's being sold for cheaper, so he will buy from them, with him also buying from them in the future. Talking back with the workers, they can't believe this, as they already bought a large amount of material with this not being a part of their deal. They are outraged, as they had to follow a strict schedule and now they won't get paid, demanding that they fix it. Meanwhile, the soldiers have a similar problem as their shipment of arrows is late, with the soldiers mad that their budgets have been cut, blaming the new general for his Rosmarines project. Gnome tells them to settle down, as it's not just them, but this rumor is going around blaming Denosuke, with every industry feeling the inflation. In his office, he sees that some businesses are already shutting down, with people considering leaving for another country. He knows the Golden King is involved in this, as the morale and finances are feeling the pinch right after the cancellation of the order. He remembers his past life, where when something went wrong, he was pressured to step forward and take all the blame. So he goes to speak with Overlord, ready to take all the blame, but the king tells him he's not responsible for the entire budget of the demon army, and that it would be outrageous to push all the blame onto him. After a motivating speech, he's released and feels motivated to find a solution. Outside, Gnome checks on him, but sees he's all right now. He goes to talk to Sylphid, but she wants to read a book, so he leaves. But soon, a bag covers his body as he's dragged away, seemingly kidnapped. It turns out to be Olmandra wanting to spend time with him as she wanted to learn how to cook the way he showed her. This is her attempt to cheer him up, but as she believes she's setting the mood, they're interrupted by Olulu, who brought some fruit to share. However, noticing the two of them, she feels like a third wheel. Still, the three enjoy the meal and stay there all night. Denosuke appreciates everyone encouraging him. The next day, he meets with Overlord, ready to turn this failure around. Meanwhile, the Gold King is talking to the merchant who managed to reproduce the magic crystal rosmarines, being Budaglion, the same merchant that almost bankrupted the mouse family. Denosuke believes that in order to solve the problem, he must find the root of the issue and remove it, so as not to make the same mistake twice. To understand this, he needs to know more about the similar product on the market and see how it's able to sell at half the price. First, he thinks about whether it's even possible to make such a product in just a month. Denosuke shakes his head. Even a skilled engineer with the blueprints wouldn't be able to accomplish this. He retreats to his inner mind bar. Inside, a drunk Denosuke doesn't know what he wants to eat, suggesting a salad or maybe bar snacks from the master. In walks Belinda in her suit with a guitar. She plays a smooth song that steals his heart, and with this, he realizes someone is indeed stealing and reselling the product. Suddenly, Olmandra barges into his office, upset because the shipment of his rosmarines isn't working. They're defective. It's essentially a recall of his magic stones. When Olmandra and Denosuke make it to the fields where villagers live, they see that the magic beasts have already destroyed their crops. Naturally, the villagers believe Denosuke is the problem, since they were the ones who installed the devices. If this keeps up, they won't have any food supply to survive or sell. Denosuke begins to dig into the dirt for clues. Olmandra informs him that this isn't the only village. Villages all across the country have sent the same complaint. When he digs out the crystal, he sees that it isn't there. He orders her to check all the other locations, but they come up empty. He believes that some villager is stealing the crystals and making off with them, saying there's no reason to check the other villages again. He opens the map and asks when the complaints started. Denosuke heads out to one of the villages, with Olmandra rushing after him since he didn't even explain his plan. Olmandra believes he's leading her on, but he tells her to be quiet. The two then spot masked people in hoods stealing the magic stones. With Olmandra's magic, they catch them in the act. Denosuke demands answers. The thieves explain they steal the stones and sell them at whatever price they want, since they're free for them. One of the thieves tries to attack with sharp claws, but is stopped by Olmandra. She is able to defeat them, but Denosuke tells her to let them go. She's confused, but he believes the plan is going perfectly. The next time the merchant meets with the king commends him for being able to maintain a steady supply while also mass-producing the item. He compliments the merchant, who tries to remain humble, saying it's his job to provide for the customer's needs. Walking down the street, the people of the Gold Empire know this man's name very well. Budaglion. He is known as the Prophet to those he makes deals with, and to his victims, he's called the Merchant of Death. His basic business strategy is to buy low and sell high, becoming rich by buying a product before anyone else knows about it and getting out the moment there are rumors. The merchant heard that the small nation ruled by the Overlord was hoping to strike a trade with the Gold King, so he figured it must be a big deal. Knowing the country was trading with the Rampage King, he knew he'd make a huge profit if he got involved. So he managed to get his hands on one of the crystals and went to scientists hoping to reproduce it. But the engineers and researchers said it was impossible. So since he couldn't make it, he stole it. Some may call him a coward, but those people don't understand business. As the merchant tries to leave the country, he's caught by the king's guard and thrown into the palace. The merchant believes there must be a mistake, but the king shows him a crystal and smashes it. It's fake. The stones he's been supplying are no longer real. The king doesn't want to hear excuses and demands he explain himself now. The merchant can't understand the problem until he realizes he's been trapped. Then Denosuke walks in. The king believes the man was right all along. Denosuke reintroduces himself to both the king and the merchant. The merchant knows Denosuke's name but misunderstands his power, believing he earned his position through fighting ability. Rumors claimed he was able to single-handedly subjugate beast tribes like the Minotaur and Ogre chiefs. He sees this man as the most dangerous in the demon army. Denosuke says their product that reduces monster attacks had been stolen. So, to counter this, they made a new product that acts as a dummy. It looks so real that no one can tell the difference. Belinda was furious he made her finish the order in one day, but demanded an expensive cake as compensation. Denosuke planted these dummies in the village most likely to be attacked. Now, looking at Protagonists, he asks why the man has these dummies. The pig sweats heavily and has no way out, but does a foolproof move when discovered. He tries to kiss up to the king, believing he can turn it around if he just survives. The king, however, isn't the type to give second chances. He orders his death, placing him in a lightning cage. A crocodile appears from a trapdoor in the sky. The pig is trapped as the beast begins to rip him apart, starting with his clothes. Protagonists keeps believing he can't die here. And just when it's all over, Denosuke interferes. This infuriates the king. He didn't give permission for his judgment to be overturned. But Denosuke can't watch this. The king tells him he's interfering in the politics of another nation. The king feels slighted. He allowed Denosuke to watch and even played along with his plan. The king isn't willing to listen. He summons more of his power, telling Denosuke he's generous to lesser beings. He asks if Denosuke is ready for the consequences. He asks if he's willing to sacrifice himself for this man. But Denosuke corrects him, unusually calm in the face of death. He declares that he needs a man like this pig, saying if he kills him, the kingdom will perish. The king doesn't see the value, but Denosuke says just 2 words, "Orange powder." That gets a response. Denosuke explains that in recent years the kingdom has had trouble mining gold, so they began using orange powder to draw out the best properties of gold using magic. Protagonists handled the supply of this powder. The Rampage King still doesn't see the point. He could just hire another merchant. But Denosuke says he's wrong. The powder comes from a distant land called Toki. In recent times, the powder became exclusive to the country after a civil war, so they don't export it like they used to. Protagonists is the only merchant from that country who can get it. Denosuke initially planned to produce gold locally, but it's impossible domestically. This merchant is known for doing business with people in conflict. He managed to get a deal on the powder in exchange for supplies such as food. He's held in high regard in Toki. If the king were to kill him, they'd stop doing business altogether. They wouldn't trust the kingdom anymore. Still, the king doesn't understand. Knowing all of this, he assumes Denosuke must be his enemy, since this problem would only help the demon army. The gold country would collapse, but Denosuke says he just wanted to help. It was the natural thing to do. This shocks both the merchant and the king. The king sits back in his chair, laughing uncontrollably at such a man. But soon he gets up, done with the mess, declaring he's going to sleep. Later, outside the palace, we learn that the pig is also a father. As the people who stole the crystals were his daughters, these are the war orphans he picked up along his travels. He adopted and sheltered them when no one else would. Knowing this is why he saved him. The two formed a partnership, with the pigmen entrusted with forming overseas alliances. The narrative begins with the Demon King calling Ulmandra and Uchimura. Uchimura, one of the 4 heavenly kings, and his king want to have a deep conversation addressing the troubling state of the economy and its repercussions on the general populace. The Demon King asks Uchimura if he's noticed that prices for basic necessities have skyrocketed and the market has become severely strained. The people are struggling to survive, with food and essential goods either unavailable or priced beyond the average person's reach. The concern is palpable as they discuss how the market situation has worsened in recent days, exacerbated by the artificial supply restrictions that have been put in place by the Demon Lord's Guild. The pigman from the previous episode warned Uchimura of this, but he still doesn't know why they'd hold the supplies. Ulmandra believes they've grown corrupt and wish to earn a ridiculous profit. Uchimura is brought out of his thoughts by this comment, and he doesn't know how to answer her as she looks rather pleased. Ulmandra offers to take control of the situation, wanting to show she can be a big help. But the Demon Lord stops this by dismissing Uchimura, allowing him to work on this while giving Ulmandra the order to go north on a different mission. The scene shifts the Demon Lord's Merchant Guild, where they're receiving a report that one of the 4 generals will come to speak with them. While the attendant is worried, the boss isn't concerned, as he feels he'll still get his way. A servant girl silently cleans his room. As Uchimura plans to leave, he hears the voice of Sylphid. When he looks up, instead of answering her question, he's more shocked by what she's wearing, asking why she's dressed like that. Sylphid asks that he not call her that, reminding him of her public name, Belinda. Uchimura agrees, then answers her question, admitting he's going to the guild. Belinda wants to come along, as there's a certain clan of elves that occupy the guild officer positions. She's going so he can appear more friendly and trustworthy with an elf accompanying him. Also, the outfit is meant to prevent them from mocking demons. He's reminded of the cultural tension in the country. The two arrive at the guild building, which is the size of a mansion or manor. When they sit in the waiting room on the first floor, Uchimura believes they might not take them seriously. This is proven correct, as the two wait for 4 hours. Just then, the leader of the guild, Viper Lord Pent, comes out, shaking his head and apologizing for making them wait, saying he completely forgot about them. But it's obvious he did this on purpose and cares little for them. Uchimura isn't bothered, but Belinda won't let this slide. She confronts him for the hours-long wait and his lack of respect. Then she walks forward. It's clear the two know each other, as Viper recognizes her, calling her big sister. Though Belinda clearly doesn't feel the same. She'd rather he died. Viper and Belinda hint at their shared past, both being from the house of Lord Pent but taking different paths in life. Belinda was exiled from the family and forced to leave, while Viper became the head of the family, controlling the resources. This exchange sets the stage for Uchimura's next move. There's a brief moment of comic relief where Uchimura humorously tries to negotiate with the guild leader. But it takes a sour turn when the man acts as if his product is extremely popular and hard to come by, saying he won't sell to them, unless Uchimura grovels on the floor and begs, wanting to see his head touch the ground. Belinda is deathly furious, and Uchimura is shocked by the request. Just as it seems Belinda is about to explode, Uchimura bows his head and begs. Viper laughs, calling him a funny guy for doing this, but shows this wouldn't be enough. The man quotes the goods at exorbitant prices, 50,000 each. Then he walks away, pulling his hood back on, issuing some advice to Uchimura, not to grovel so easily, as the world might lose respect for his word. If that happens, he's done being a merchant. As soon as they get outside, Belinda is enraged. She shows her intent by threatening to burn the place down, noting that elves are weak against fire. Uchimura's sweat drops, thinking everything is weak to fire. She then yells at him, saying he should be just as mad as she is for being forced to grovel for nothing. Uchimura calmly straightens his tie, claiming that doing so didn't affect his pride. Uchimura then shifts the conversation to her little brother. Belinda reminds him she came from an elven merchant family, and that elves have a hard time procreating. To combat this, the Lord Pent family had children with other demi-human races for generations. For example, her genetic background is complicated, part fairy, part viper. Because of this, they possess natural traits associated with fairies and vipers. For instance, vipers, like most snakes, tend to be selfish and greedy. This explains why her brother and other cousins were born with a desire for fame and fortune. It's a deeply rooted problem in the family, with greed and exploitation reaching new heights. Eventually, those driven by selfish desires attacked peaceful elven villages, going so far as to burn forests and imprison their own brethren, selling their cookies in the process. As they walk, Uchimura already considers buying the item he wants elsewhere, but the two are interrupted by a soft yet firm voice. When they turn around, they see a little girl out of breath from running after them. When she catches her breath, she pleads for them to save her from the Lord Pent family, saying they're forcing her to work for the guild. She hopes that one of the 4 elite generals can save her and arrest the guild for the evil acts they've committed. Uchimura looks at the girl and notices her appearance. No shoes, dirty clothes, clearly a victim of neglect. But Belinda gets the wrong idea. Uchimura decides to help, which disgusts Belinda even more when he offhandedly calls the girl cute. Uchimura takes the girl and offers to buy her new clothes, with her amazed by the cute dress he bought her. But behind him, Belinda is dead inside as she assumes that Uchimura has a Lolita complex, never suspecting this from him. She lets out a silent prayer to Omandra, as everyone in the army knows she has a crush on him, but it seems they'll never be together. Uchimura vows to protect her, oblivious to Belinda's thoughts. The three go to an expensive restaurant with well-designed interior. Inside, he learns that she was separated from her parents and forced to work for the guild master with no pay. It doesn't look like they'll be going on strike anytime soon, as they don't have a union. The pay they do receive is just enough to cover food, so they can't miss a payment or else they'd starve. Naya warns that soon a calamity will arrive, leaving them unable to buy food. This catches Uchimura by surprise, as he didn't hear about this calamity. Naya looks down as she tells him of the rumor started by the guild that has a hold on the country. This allows the guild to control the spending habits of the people. Viper has created a scarcity in the market for Gim, while also creating a need for it, buying all of it in advance so he can raise the price. No matter how evil they are, in a modern society, you need to prove it and cannot act. Belinda calls him an idiot, as she'd much rather just end his life when he's not looking, not seeing anything wrong with that. Still, he wants to end this fairly, with the people able to watch, as Viper Lord Pent controls people's actions with money. If he does it this way, it can promote this kind of thinking to others and show them they don't have to turn to violent or underhanded means to be heard. The next morning, the same worrisome assistant to Lord Viper comes running into his office. Viper wants to rip out the man's tongue, but tells him just to say what the problem is. The assistant says that it's the demon army. This makes Viper open his eyes, unsure of what trouble they're about to cause. Just then, Uchimura, Belinda, and Naya walk in the door as Uchimura says he's here to conduct an emergency audit. Uchimura plans to use this to gauge what Viper has in stock, but also to see if their activities involve anything illegal and track how they do business. The audit can also prove that Viper planned to have a monopoly on Gim, in which case he'd be able to arrest him. Uchimura made sure to arrive unannounced to prevent the guild from trying to cover up their actions or give fake information. Viper seemingly doesn't care and walks away, while the assistant does his best to stall for time, offering tea, needing to get the person in charge of the warehouse, or needing a key. Belinda already knew where it was and walked in that direction. Uchimura got information from the cat people that they sold a large amount of Gim to the guild. Uchimura knew that other producers did the same, as he has the documentation, so he's sure the guild wouldn't be able to hide such a large quantity of resources. But to his shock, when he opens the warehouse, it's empty. Just then, Viper shows up with other officials taunting them for causing such a big fuss in the morning. His smile makes it clear that he's mocking them, as it appears he has the upper hand. Uchimura admits that he's lost internally, as his assumption was wrong. Back at his office, the two discuss their recent failure, as Belinda hated watching her brother's snarky face as he gloated in victory. Uchimura is concerned about the results of the audit, as it shows that Viper didn't make any bulk purchases that could link him to creating the economic crash. Belinda believes they faked it, but Uchimura counters that the paper would have been shown to be new, or would have quickly scribbled letters. Belinda proposes that maybe it wasn't the guild that made the purchase, but an individual from the Lord Pent family. Uchimura believes this is possible, and Belinda continues her thought that the family member could have made the trade, tricking the producer into thinking they were trading with the guild. This would qualify it as a scam. Still, they need to find out how they transferred so many resources so quickly. Belinda thinks that issue doesn't matter, as they have another problem on their hands, this being that their top secret plan of doing an audit was found out. Belinda makes it clear that they had a snitch on their side who gave the information back to Viper. That person being Naya. Back in Viper's throne room, he admits to loving the advantage he has over his opponents, enjoying the look on his older sister's face when she realized she lost. He says he'll praise Naya this one time for providing valuable information, this being a sad Naya with. She thanks her master, but then asks about how he managed to move all his supplies so quickly from the warehouse. Viper is annoyed by her question, asking if she's planning to backtalk her master. Naya begins to apologize profusely, terrified of this man. Viper then gets up, and just as he raises his hand, as he simply pats her head, but then tells her that he moved it to a caravan patrolling the frontier. But with this information lies a threat, as he tells her that her mother and father are working there, asking if she plans to add more work for them, as they have their own business to run. Later, Nia walks the streets questioning her own birth, as she was born to the lowest of the low in the Lord Pent branch family. She lived with her mother and father until the head of the Lord Pent family kicked down the door to abduct her, as he wanted a new secretary. The last one is dead. As a child, she wanted her parents to protect her, to be willing to go against the family for her. Anything. But in the end, she was taken away so more trouble wouldn't be brought. What she experienced on a daily basis was hellish. She'd be hurt in many ways, with Viper hating her, as Naya reminded him of his older sister. She was always smarter than him. Naya prayed for her hair to grow so she wouldn't look like Belinda, hoping her pain would end. which is why she keeps quiet, hoping he wouldn't hurt her. Then one day, she was given a mission to spy on the demon army. She honestly hoped to play both sides and maybe take out Viper, as he doesn't even see her as a human being, not suspecting she'd betray him. Uchimura is walking the streets, seeing that the everyday expenses of the people have gone up, with families going hungry. He retreats back to the recesses of his mind, to the bar, to think about the situation for a solution. At the bar, Uchimura hears the loud conversation of the people in the back, all having their own concerns about the workplace. One man doesn't like the treatment, as the higher-ups see them as disposable pawns. One woman doesn't like the sexual harassment from the higher-ups, and one thinks it best to change the company from inside. Just then, Uchimura is brought out of his thoughts by Olmandra, who's been calling his name this entire time as she's concerned why he's been daydreaming in the middle of the road. Olmandra has returned from a hunting mission involving a wyvern, or dragon. She boasted about defeating about 30 dragons on her trip up north, with her returning back with a souvenir for the Demon King. Uchimura believes he now has a solution to his problem as he praises the woman as she's amazing. Olmandra blushes, telling him not to say stuff like that out loud, but he's already gone. An overly cheery Nita opens the door to Uchimura's office, apologizing for being late. Uchimura doesn't mind. Instead, he thanks her for coming. Nita is eager to work and do anything she can. Belinda, not liking the sight of the little girl, moves to the matter at hand. She reminds them that the audit plan didn't work, so there isn't much they can do. Uchimura isn't bothered, at least now they know the Gim isn't at the warehouse of the guild. He proceeds to issue his next plan. Everyone narrows their eyes. The plan is called Dragon Strike. The little girl is confused, asking, "What is that? Dragon Strike?" She hears the crashing of the door and jumps. Ololu and Olmandra arrive with a wagon of something under a cloth, the finished product finally complete. Uchimura thanks them both, but before he can get started, Nata starts to sweat. She can feel killing intent directed at her. An enraged Olmandra darts her eyes at the girl, asking who this woman is. Belinda, tired of the show, throws Uchimura a bone by telling Miss Olmandra that the girl is just an informant for them. With this, she calms down, even if Belinda still thinks she's Uchimura's lolicon. Ololu gets Olmandra back on track, and she reveals that the ogre tribe spent all night creating this for them: smoked wyvern meat. Nita is surprised, as she expected something related to stopping Viper. Ololu is proud of her family. It's from their secret recipe. They smoke it and add herbs. Uchimura then turns to explain that plan Dragon Strike is about distributing this food to those in need. Nita doesn't understand, but still shows her support to help in any way. Just as Uchimura is about to explain, Belinda grabs him. She whispers to him to wait before revealing what he's about to do, with Nata not surprised that this woman is wary of her. Later in the evening, when everyone supposedly left the office to go home, Nata is searching through Uchimura's files for something. She supposedly finds what she's looking for and silently tries to leave, but Belinda catches her in the act. Belinda starts to scold Nata, feeling self-righteous, as she accuses her of doing nothing but deceiving people and worsening the economy through her actions. Nita whispers that she doesn't have to take this from her. Years of hurt boil to the surface as she yells at Belinda, calling all this her fault. Nita throws a smoke bomb and runs away. Nita is annoyed by the woman. Someone born of privilege could never understand what poverty is, yet she just threw that life away for nothing. That night, in the guildmaster's room, she goes to report her findings to him, informing him of their plan to distribute wyvern meat to people in need, starting tomorrow. Viper muses over the plan. It might stop some people from buying Gim, but nothing too concerning. Still, he wants to know the location where they plan to start. Nita knows they're going to distribute the food in the center of the town, but she remembers all the painful experiences of being the boss's personal punching bag and tells him they're going to start with the suburbs. As the girl sweats from her little lie, Viper smirks and laughs at her attempt to outsmart him. He sees through the lie. He knows Uchimura is soft, but he isn't stupid. The most cost-effective way would be from the center. Nita tries to make the excuse that maybe Uchimura is doing this to trick him, but Viper doesn't believe it. That plan is just irrational. Viper smugly informs her that he trusts the enemy more than a rat like her. He then details the remainder of his plan. The caravan he had circling the city will now come back. Tomorrow, when the people see a full market's worth of Gim on display, they'll be drawn to it and ready to buy at the high prices he's set. Even with smoked meat in the air, he's sure Gim will win the people over. Viper laughs at everyone's attempt to trick him, but in the end, he'll win, even if she tries using underhanded tactics. Hearing this, Nita feels like she's drowning. Everything she's done has meant nothing. Viper then grabs her, a sinister smile on his face, and says, "It's punishment time." Back with the group, Belinda informs Uchimura that she was right. The girl was a spy, thinking he'd get rid of her. But Uchimura instead begins to ask Belinda questions. She was right, but she wasn't paying attention to the girl as a person. Uchimura knows that Belinda thinks he's too kind, but the girl was in danger when she arrived. Dirty clothes, bruises. When he bought her new clothes, he confirmed his theory. In fact, Uchimura would have come to the same conclusion in the end, that she was a spy, due to the look in her eyes. Her eyes told a full story of her life, fear of Viper, but also a hollowness inside. Uchimura then tells the story of one of the places he worked with his colleagues, as the three wanted to make a change in the company they worked at. But in the end, they failed. Made to be lackeys for the boss, sent away to desolate farm areas that would kill their career or be demoted, made to carry equipment until they broke, as the spark of life from their eyes was gone. Uchimura details that the girl is stressed, probably in fear of her life, so they can't exactly judge her actions as she feels cornered with very few options. In the guild's meeting hall, Viper goes over Uchimura's plan with his hooded officers, but reassures them that the enemy won't get the upper hand. Viper is all smiles as he can't wait for tomorrow to see his sister's face of despair. But he then hints to one more thing special about tomorrow. The scene then cuts to Nata, chained and wearing rags as she looks broken. The next morning, Viper's jumpy attendant wakes up Viper early in the morning with urgent news. Viper is not prepared for this much yelling in the morning as he's still in sleepwear, thinking of ways to break the man's neck. The attendant starts to stutter as he's obviously not comfortable reporting this back to the boss. Viper tells him he doesn't care, as the shipment of Jim is supposed to have arrived by now. But that's when the attendant informs Viper that the shipment is not only late, but there's no sign of it. The demon army has started distributing the smoked meat, which catches Viper by surprise, but the attendant clarifies that the demon army is distributing their Jim. Viper is fully awake now as he gets dressed quickly and hurries to see what is going on. Belinda cuts him off at the entrance as she tells him there's no need for him to be there, with her holding what looks like a sword in cloth. She comes to inform her ill-advised half-brother of the truth about what's going on. The guild, which was built for the merchants and to make things easier for the citizens, has turned corrupt, as he is hoarding the supplies so that he can have a monopoly. He tried to hold all the Gim, so the demon army just bought it from another country and had it imported. Now they're handing it out to the people, like making his supply worthless, with it coming from the pigman from a couple of episodes ago. Viper now believes he understands, as the wyvern meat was just a distraction. But Belinda shows that he was outsmarted long ago, as the smoked meat is real. That's how they paid for the Gim. Since wyvern meat is seen as a delicacy, he was able to get the Gim for practically nothing. Viper can't believe this and deems that it must be a lie, as there's no way they'd be able to acquire so much Gim in one day. He claims Uchimura just stole it from him, but Belinda cuts him off. She says the skill level between Viper and Uchimura is enormous. He's right, they didn't get this done in one day due to rash thinking, but Uchimura planned this out days in advance. Viper doesn't believe this, as then what would be the point in the man lowering his head to him and bowing? Belinda says it's because he cares for his people and wanted to get them food as soon as possible, as such small gestures mean nothing. If anything, he gave Viper the chance to show he could be an ally. Belinda is able to verbally demoralize Viper, as all along this game of his was all in his head. The Uchimura and he were never playing a back and forth game. If anything, it was just Viper dancing in the palm of Uchimura's hand. Belinda then makes fun of Viper while putting salt in his wound, as she believes that her brother spent so much on the Gim that he would go bankrupt. Viper laughs, and his snake-like tongue shows he still has plans he hasn't yet shown. Viper then goes to make his escape. Belinda tries to chase after him, but she's made to jump back as a blast of energy attacks her, coming from ninja bodyguards Viper hired. Belinda isn't worried by seeing this, as she already expected she'd run into some resistance from the start. The two sides engage in battle, and Belinda manages to easily dodge, as she originally planned to give this to Uchimura, but that idea can wait. The ninjas attack at the same time and destroy parts of the mansion. They fire energy beams, and Belinda uses the sword's absorption properties to gain magical power using the Rosmarin designs from earlier, with her managing to easily overpower the enemy. Viper is pissed as he's forced to run away, but he's able to stay calm with the thought of public opinion being a roller coaster. Once things calm back down, he can start again as the guildmaster. But as he opens the door, planning on escaping, he's cornered from all sides as many of the people from the Lord Pent branch family surround him, all listening to Uchimura's orders. Uchimura cuts off Viper's thoughts as the merchants have made their vote official. Viper questions what he means by this, and Uchimura coldly tells him that as of this moment, he is no longer the guildmaster. Viper is erratic, asking what the meaning of this is, but Uchimura just repeats what he said. Viper has been dismissed from his position. The Lord Pent family and officers will all be exiled from the country. Viper is agitated as he's cornered. He yells at them, demanding to know who voted against him, and is about to threaten the merchants. But Uchimura stops him, as it seems that Viper doesn't understand the situation. The merchants voted against him, fully knowing the consequences of their actions if Viper got his way. But they still took the risk, as the man is a cancer on the country. Natta walks forward, covered in bruises and an eye patch, as she's the one who was able to convince them. Earlier, Uchimura managed to get to her prison cell and free a weak Natta. He told her not to speak, as he already knew the full truth. Uchimura was able to convince her to work for him, as he could get rid of Viper permanently. The merchants were all called, and she showed them what working under Viper meant, as all of her injuries were caused by him, easily able to convince them that the man would only pollute the country if he was able to get a foot in the market. The group of merchants were shocked, seeing such brutality, and didn't take much convincing to back their cause. Natta yells that she won't listen to Viper anymore, as he's no longer welcome to do business in the country. Viper tries to beg and appeal to Uchimura's sympathy, but Uchimura isn't easily fooled. Viper's skin begins to crystallize as he rushes to slice Uchimura, but he's cut in the back by a more than happy Belinda. The episode ends with Gim now being taken away, bound by rope. As he's dragged away to prison, Viper informs them that the calamity will still come with or without him, as the Gimim hasn't been located yet, meaning a giant loss of profit for the kingdom. But Belinda smacks him on the head and he's taken away. Later, Natta bows to Uchimura, as she's deeply sorry for the trouble she caused in lying to him, expecting some type of punishment or imprisonment. Uchimura asks her to come. She's right. The matter hasn't fully been dropped, but it turns out he wants her to work for him rather than be imprisoned. This shocks the girl, as she assumed the worst. Uchimura then tells her the story of how her father was the first one to turn against Viper, as he delayed the shipments of Gim, all in order to protect her. She cries and is informed that she will be working under Ololu as an assistant and secretary, with the girl already liking the sound of that, as she's already getting used to calling Ololu. At last, the threat had escalated beyond a simple border concern, as the Demon King sits on his throne pondering the calamity that's coming from the desert. Meanwhile, in a carriage, Uchimura and Natta have been called to assist Ulmandra on a seemingly peaceful day. Ulmandra explains the situation. The emergence of the wyverns in the northern region of Kitaho had once been an isolated incident, but now the situation had deteriorated into a full-scale crisis. Their numbers had grown exponentially, and even the urban sectors were no longer safe from their raids. The Demon King, acknowledging the threat as a tangible natural disaster, one he oddly referred to as a calamity, issued an urgent directive to his entire army. His orders were clear: contain and suppress the wyvern outbreak at all costs. This was Uchimura's first calamity, but he knows how much damage one can cause the blight, as it was once known to make a whole kingdom disappear. Among the Demon King's elite, the 4 generals were assigned specific duties. Sylphid had been gathering intelligence and preparing countermeasures. The remaining 3 were deployed to reinforce the front lines and prevent the invading wyverns from penetrating deeper into the Demon King's territory. Ololu gets their attention as they're approaching their destination, being the Demon Fort, the largest and most strategically vital fortress under the Demon King's domain. A large brick castle fortress with wooden walls situated near the border and flanked by 2 smaller forts. Inside the dark halls of the fortress, they're greeted by one of the 4 generals, Gnome. She sarcastically referred to their stronghold as the Fortress of Despair. It had become known for breaking spirits as much as it defended borders. She's been here while he was dealing with the guild incident. She praises him for bringing hope to the citizens and feeding the vulnerable, with some calling him a hero. So she wonders if he can be the hero here as well, praising Uchimura. But Uchimura dismissed the praise with, "I'm not a hero," he told Gnome. But before he can continue, Ulmandra cuts in saying he's weak, vulnerable, and meager, as one punch would finish him off. Ulmandra meant for her words to persuade Gnome from thinking he'd go on the front lines of the battle. but her blunt, brutal words make Uchimura feel self-conscious. The two women get into a fight as they can't stand the sight of each other, but they're brought out of this as the bell rings out, signaling the arrival of the wyverns. Gnome mutters how the wyverns already attacked them recently, but nevertheless, she must go out and defend. Her troops rush out to shoot down the wyverns with bows and arrows, while the demons under the command of Lilim use their magic. Uchimura observed as the armies prepared their defenses and launched counterattacks against the descending wyverns. Both the arrows and the magic seem ineffective in dealing with the wyverns, as the magic isn't accurate enough to hit a moving target, while the arrows are simply too weak to pierce their tough skin. The disorganized fusion of both forces led to mounting casualties and frayed tempers, as it appears that cultural differences between the demons and demihumans are getting in the way of their teamwork. Ulmandra has to admit this is pathetic, as they're too busy both being trash and blaming each other. This forces her to act and carry the team. Ulmandra's magic was strong enough to damage a wyvern that came too close, and her physical attributes allow her to overpower them. While Uchimura admires her combat ability, she urges him to run as a wyvern is headed right for them, but it's shot in the eye with an arrow, as a running gnome shows she has the heart of a wolf as she cuts it down with her sword. The two commanders show their strength to their army, and both Ulmandra and Gnome order their sides on how to attack. The results are much better, but both sides have deep-rooted animosity that won't easily go away. At night, it's time for dinner, with both sides sporting a fair amount of injuries. But as the demons eat, the animosity the demihumans have for them is easily shown as their group eats a larger meal. Ulmandra limits herself to one piece of bread, but that can't be said for the rest of her army. Uchimura goes to the fortress's torchlit roof to give Gnome some food, but the woman says she doesn't need it, as she doesn't eat as much as the demons. But she then remarks how useless Uchimura is here. Uchimura agrees as he's a non-combatant. Gnome doesn't remark on this further, but would rather focus on what made him useful, being his brain. She wants to know straight up what he thinks about their army. Uchimura doesn't hesitate. He believes that the fortress will be set ablaze, and they will all fall in a matter of days. Gnome wants him to continue, and he does. He believes that the infighting is the main problem, as today they showed that with the help of the elite generals, they can win. But he lays out 3 key flaws. First, the incompatibility of combat styles. Demons excelled in sheer power, but lacked discipline and formation strategy. Demihumans, conversely, were weak in raw combat ability, but thrived on coordination and tactical planning. When these two fighting styles clashed, they nullified each other's strengths, resulting in chaos. Second, the supply crisis. With demons requiring exponentially more food for magic, eating such food in front of them makes the demihumans grow increasingly resentful of the inequality in rations. Gnome knows of this last one, as it was made clear to her troops beforehand, but because of the constant battles, their supplies keep taking a bigger hit. Third, and most critical, was the psychological rift. Long-standing cultural and racial tensions between humans and demons had never truly healed. On the battlefield, where life and death hung in the balance, those deep-rooted suspicions and hostilities resurfaced. Soldiers no longer saw comrades in arms, only former enemies forced to share space. This lack of mental unity, Uchimura concluded, posed a bigger threat than any wyvern. Impressed by the accuracy of his analysis, Gnome asked what solutions he would propose, as she was never able to solve this. Uchimura requested a map of the surrounding area and reviewed the layout of the fortress. His eyes landed on an abandoned village behind the main stronghold, an overlooked sector, desolate but structurally intact. There, inspiration struck. The vacant village could serve as a second base, a means to separate the human and demon forces tactically without severing their alliance. By stationing units based on strategic compatibility, maintaining supply lines through the nearby roads, and easing cultural friction through physical division, they could restore morale and improve efficiency. The idea was well received. It was a perspective no one had considered, a non-military solution to a military problem, born of managerial insight rather than brute force. However, theory alone wouldn't be enough. The most challenging obstacle remained, convincing both sides to cooperate with the plan. Gnome knew that the demons wouldn't follow her. Uchimura agreed, but is leaving that to Ms. Ulmandra. Uchimura does warn that there could be a problem later from this split focus, as the chain of command could become more confusing than it's worth. But Gnome isn't worried. In a cheerful tone, she grabs Uchimura as the solution is clear to her. The next morning, every troop in the army is gathered outside the gates, not pleased by the sudden command. Ulmandra doesn't have much of a choice in gathering all of the disgruntled soldiers, and she's not happy she was kept in the dark. Nome ignores her as she addresses the troops. In a bold display of political theater, the stage is set as Nome gives a dramatic public endorsement of Uchimura. Before the eyes of the entire fortress, she introduces Uchimura as the strongest of the Big Four and supreme commander of the army. As soon as the people see him and hear the name, they immediately have their spirits lifted, as everyone in the country knows of this man's deeds, some already believing he was the strongest out of the elite generals. Uchimura appears like a big shot with his oversized coat, with Nome helping him look commanding. Last night, Nome managed to convince Uchimura of the position to lead them, as neither Ulmandra nor herself could do it because of their cultural differences. But Uchimura is different. No one is as culturally diverse as him. He managed to earn the respect of everyone he meets. With that, he's made to put on the coat and assume the responsibility that comes with it. Embarrassed but determined, he stepped into the spotlight, but he played the part. Standing before the troops, he declared the fortress was at a tipping point. The wyverns were closing in, and unless they changed their mindset, they would fall, not to monsters, but to their own internal divisions. He didn't ask them to forget the past. He didn't pretend centuries of animosity could be undone in a day, but he asked them to unite, if only for a moment, against a greater threat. He plans to separate them and give them assigned roles in what he called Operation Sword and Shield. With this, both armies had set goals and could fight on the same side, and surprisingly, they listened. Another round of cheers rang out as his inspiring speech made them believe that Uchimura was a hero. The sun barely crests over the distant cliffs when a sharp cry echoes across the battlefield. Nome's second-in-command informs her that the wyverns are coming. Nome orders them not to let the enemy break through, and the twang of bowstrings fills the air. At the core of the response stands Uchimura. He reminds his troops of the carefully designed sword and shield strategy. He then gives the signal and the bell rings, getting Ulmandra and her army's attention. She calls her men over and they charge after her. The demons will use their superior speed, as they're faster than any horse. In close combat, the demons are able to easily defeat their enemies, while the tactics of the demi-humans allow them to deal with the wyverns from range. The tactic makes use of all their resources with the same labor. After the first wave of wyverns has been dealt with, one of the soldiers tallies up the fatality chart, showing that they've miraculously not lost a single person, and better yet, no one is reported as injured. The troops are amazed by the results, as such a turnaround happened in less than a day with no new change other than their mindset. Ulmandra goes to take a dip in the lake, not caring for decency. She's too busy daydreaming about Uchimura giving her human babies. Ololu and Neda come to talk to her in the meantime, informing her that another woman is speaking to him right now, Nome. Hearing it's her mortal enemy with her lover, she rushes to get out of the bath, but is reminded that it's best she wash up. If not, Uchimura will think she's a filthy cave woman, forcing her to sit and properly wash herself. That night, Nome and Uchimura go over another strategy plan for the army. Uchimura plans to reorganize their distribution of supplies. Up until now, they've had them delivered separately to different forts, which only creates disparity in supplies, as some sites get more resources than others. Instead, they'll have all the food and supplies sent to the abandoned village and closely monitor how much is given to the demons. This prevents conflict through effective management. Nome is again impressed by the hero of the army, calling him by his name for the first time. She gets closer to him, ready to lean in for a kiss, but the two are stopped by the ghostly vision of Ulmandra, who comments on how close the two look. She then cuts to the point of her visit as she's leaving to go back to the capital, as the demon lord has ordered her to return and give him a report on the recent situation, taking the woman back with her since they're no longer in a crisis. Ulmandra blushes, wanting to give a brief farewell to Uchimura. She was moved by his speech the other day, realizing the infighting they engaged in was pointless. This moment brings Ulmandra and Gnome slightly closer. That night, Uchimura writes his report on the situation. Their front still has a critical flaw. He hasn't yet discovered the reason behind the sudden wyvern attacks. He works through the night into the morning. The next night, Ololu and Neda come running to inform Uchimura that two other frontiers were attacked simultaneously. They're headed straight for the capital. Uchimura's eyes widen in shock. They had just sent a wave of soldiers home. He rushes back to see Ulmandra giving a valiant effort in defending the capital. She's able to overpower a few, but not when they attack all at once. The battle forces her to go all out. her scales more defined, her claws sharper, her magic drawn in close. In the end, she manages to defend the capital on her own, but is pushed to unconsciousness. Just then, a running Uchimura catches her, yelling her name repeatedly, but she doesn't respond.